of virtuosity and hand crossing. Scarlatti wrote at least 555 sonatas for the keyboard, making him one of the most prolific composers of harpsichord music of all time. It's an incredible collection of repertoire that he has left us with. He was born in Naples, and we assume that as a child he studied music with his father, Alessandro, a famous composer of opera especially. And Alessandro was really adamant that his son Domenico would have a career in music and really wanted him to follow in his own footsteps. And so initially, Domenico got a job working in Rome for the exiled Polish queen as a composer. He also worked at the Vatican. And it seems that their relationship, based on correspondence that we have, was very fraught. Domenico wanted to forge his own path. He wanted to be his own individual voice as a composer, and so he left his position at the Vatican. He left Italy entirely, and in 1719 he moved to Lisbon, Portugal, to work as the music director for the king and subsequently as the music teacher for the king's children, including the Princess Maria Magdalena Barbara. And his relationship with this princess would become incredibly important to him professionally, because whenever the princess married into the Spanish royal family and relocated to Madrid, Scarlatti continued to work for her as her music teacher and as a composer at her court. And he moved to Madrid in 1733, and he remained there working for the royal family for the rest of his life. And so it was a very important professional connection for him. It was while he was in Madrid that he wrote most of his keyboard sonatas, and the queen, now the queen, she had been the princess but was now queen, was reported to be a very accomplished harpsichordist herself, and so there are stories of them performing concerts together of these 555, not all at once of course, but over time, these 555 harpsichord sonatas that he presumably wrote, some of at least, for her. There are a lot of common characteristics. 555 sonatas is a lot of sonatas to write, and so many of them share a lot of common characteristics with one another. They are often in what we call rounded binary form, which means that they're in two large sections overall. The first section we call A, and then the second section starts with new material, usually that's the B section, and then it ends with a return to some of the material that we heard earlier in the A section, which we refer to as A prime, or A with the apostrophe after it. Many of them are also in a form that is somewhat unique to Scarlatti that we call balanced binary form, which means that the end of the first half and the end of the second half are exactly identical in terms of the melody and the rhythm and the structure. The only thing that differs is that they're not in the same key at the end of A and the end of B. So that's balanced binary form. That's very unique to Scarlatti and a few of his other contemporaries. They feature rapid passage work, hand crossing, and arpeggiations, and also they use the full range of the harpsichord, which at the time would have been 5 octaves or about 61 notes in total. So he really used the full breadth of the instrument available to him. Hand crossing was really, as I said with Rameau, it's becoming a thing in the middle of the 18th century. Scarlatti does it in a lot of his compositions. I was just recently reading C.P.E. Bach, the son of J.S. Bach. He wrote a book in 1753 called The Essay on the True Art of Playing Keyboard Instruments. He seemed to have a very different interpretation of hand crossing in keyboard music. He said, "It is a vain tempest that can trick only the ignorant," essentially indicating that it's simply a party trick and there's nothing really special about it at all. But I'll let you be the judge of that today, of course, in the performance. I think it's pretty spectacular. The photo that I have here is of an Italian harpsichord. We sadly have very few surviving Spanish instruments from the 18th century. I've played on one, and I unfortunately don't have a good photo of it, so I'm sharing a photo of an Italian harpsichord that we think was very similar to the harpsichords in Spain that Scarlatti would have been writing his music for. It's one keyboard rather than two that we had on the French harpsichord. It's all strung in brass wire, so it has a very bright sound. French harpsichords were usually strung in iron, so they have a much more warm and round and rich sound. And you can also see, it's a little hard to maybe tell from the photo, but the way that these harpsichords were built, actually the inside of the harpsichord can slide completely out of the decorative case on the outside. And so if you wanted to, you could take the mechanism of the instrument and the strings and the keyboard and slide it into a different case if you wanted to change your mind about the artwork that you had. You didn't have to buy an entirely new harpsichord. You simply had to slide the old one out and have a new one built to your taste. Today's program concludes with another piece by J.S. Bach, an early piece, a little bit later than the previous one, but an early piece nevertheless for Bach, his Prelude and Fugue in A minor, which we think dates to sometime between 1716 and 1718. By the time Bach writes this, he's late in his tenure in Weimar. So he was in Arnstadt, and then he moved to Weimar to work for the Duke. He's working as a court organist, a music director, and a composer. This is really his first real job in Arnstadt. It was a small job. He was sort of at an apprentice type of level, which is probably why he wasn't fired entirely for